Hi guys, this episode was shot at the incredible Rev 17 conference where they are raising funds to get a huge piece of property to house trafficked children. There is no more worthy cause than to save these children. Please click on the QR code and donate to Rev 17.
All right, guys, we're here at the Rev 17. I almost said Rev 19. Rev 17 conference, close to Sacramento. I kind of don't know where I am because I just drove out here. I have a feeling I'm about 45 minutes out of Sacramento. You probably have a better idea.
I'm from Northern California. So, yeah, you're right, though, about 45 minutes north of Sacramento.
Thank you for confirming where I am. But you're David Serpa, sir. You are running for California governor, and I want to get to know you, bro. Tell me what's going on. Why are you running for California governor?
Yeah, and that's a good question because, there's about 37,000 Republicans running for governor right now. And, why am I running? I don't do anything that I don't feel called to do. And I do feel called to do this, to walk this path right now. That's not to say that, I'll be walking down this path forever. But right now, that's what we're doing. There's a lot of different reasons. And you know the long story, which I could give to you if you want me to give it to you. But
I would love. I know your story. I would love the viewers to know your story.
Okay, so the long and short of it is, I had a lot of people asking me to run for governor since the end of the last election cycle, and I kept telling them, no, I'm not particularly interested in running for office. I don't feel called to do it. I'm not going to do it. And people kept asking. And then what ended up happening was I had a dream that I ran for governor on a Saturday night. I woke up that morning. I said to my wife, I had a dream that I ran for governor last night. And she said, I had a dream that you ran for governor too, but everywhere that we went, people were screaming at us. And we go to church that day, and my pastor says, today we're going to talk about dreams. We're going to talk about the Old Testament. We're going to talk about Joseph and his brothers. And it was a calling, And so I decided to move forward. I started talking to people about running for governor. It was during that time that I found out through the Bianco camp that he was getting ready to launch his campaign for governor. And so my team reached out to Bianco's team about us having a meeting, which we ended up setting up at another Christian conference organized by a friend. And we sat there and we talked for about 2 hours, my team, his wife Denise, and Sheriff Bianco, about what it looks like. And I told him, look, I've got one of three different ways that I could go at this. I could go at this like Trump in 2016. I'm a hammer, everyone's a nail. I could go at this like Vivek Ramaswamy, where I focus on the narrative, I focus on the policies, and if I don't pick up, I'll endorse you and I'll back out. Or the third one is I could be your JD Vance, the sheriff going into Sacramento, Marine having his back. And what ultimately ended up happening was, after that meeting, which I felt was a very positive meeting, and we were all kind of leaning towards that, 2 days later, I pulled paperwork to run for lieutenant governor instead of governor. And I was there with him when he launched his campaign. I had several people talking to me about, what are you doing? Why don't you run for governor? And I said, well, I'm backing up the sheriff right now. But what ended up happening was, over the course of the next 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks, we had zero communication. We spoke at the same events together. I would say some good things about him. He wouldn't really mention me, which is fine. It's fine. I understand it. But then I kept saying, hey, well, let's get together next week. Are you free Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? You free Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
You're trying to establish an alliance with him to work as a team.
Well, what I feel like the biggest problem that we have with the Republican Party is we're so fractured. And so,
too many chiefs, not enough Indians. Whereas in the Democrat parties, you have a lot of Indians and maybe very few chiefs. It's
very few chiefs these days, especially because the DNC is so corrupt that they really stifle a lot of their young talent from moving forward through their process. Somebody said once, it's not a matter of whoever can vote, who wants to vote, just as long as I get to pick the candidates, right? And so I was telling the sheriff, hey, listen, I really like to get together. Hey, yeah, we'll get together next week. So we ended up going up to the CAGOP where I met you, and we didn't really talk too much. We talked like 3 or 4 different times, but I told him, I said, hey, listen, I'm a good dog, but you got to put me on a leash, and you and I even talked a couple of times there, and I was trying to get a feel for you.
And by the way, one little background to this whole story, because we have a lot of mutual friends, and I kept hearing that, hey, like this David Serpa, because people were like, okay, you got this Chad Bianco guy running. People are really pushing. Friends of mine were really pushing David to run for office, and so you staying loyal to Bianco and kind of telling those, because it's a higher office, it's more prestigious. People with big egos want to be a governor and stuff, but you decided, no, I'm going to be lieutenant governor to Chad Bianco, and that didn't seem to work out.
Well, I don't need the big ego. Like, I'm a policy wonk. I'm a history guy. Like, I understand why we are where we are. I understand what we need to do to get out of these current situations. And I wanted to be able to back them up, build a Bianco administration. And ultimately, what ended up happening was we were not seeing, it's not even that we weren't seeing eye to eye. There's zero communication. And so he apologizes to me while I was on the way up to CAGOP. Hey, we'll see each other when we're up there. So what ended up happening was my team and I leave. I said, hey, because we're considering it at this time running for governor. I said, what do we do? Do we talk to him one more time? And they said, no, we've really done all the waiting that we could. We go back home. About 2 or 3 weeks go by. Still don't hear anything, despite having reached out to him as many times as I did. And so I go to church, and I'm one of those people. I believe God is alive. He's talking to us. Some people call him the universe. Some people call it their intuition. I believe God is alive. He's talking to us. He gives us orders. And sometimes it's through other people. Sometimes it's through a prophetic word that somebody comes up and gives you. Sometimes it's a feeling, a gut feeling, an intuition. When you start hearing a voice that is more intelligent, better than you are, often I believe that that's the Holy Spirit. That's God talking to you. Yeah. And so I go to church, and my pastor says, we cannot go the path of least resistance and assign God's blessing to it retroactively. And so that's what I felt like I was doing. I was going the path of least resistance, what God had not called me to do, and I was trying to assign God's blessing to it. And so 2 days later, I pulled my paperwork to run for governor, and that's what I'm doing. So that's why I'm running. But a big part of it is, I went and I took an RV trip with my kids. We saw a lot of the great state parks throughout the state of California. There are homeless people everywhere. The streets are ran down, and my kids are saying, how come we can't feed that person? How come we can't house that person? And there's a certain amount of shame that goes into telling your kids, oh, well, they're hungry because, whatever, they're addicted to drugs. At some point or another, it's incumbent on us to start fixing the problems that we see. And, somebody talked about in this conference, God, how can you let this happen? And he says, well, I'm not letting this happen. That's why I sent you. That's why I chose you. And so I do believe that there are a lot of us that are called to serve in one capacity or another. And we ignore those callings because it's going to be hard.
I mean, this governor's race has been especially frustrating for me. And the reason why it's been so frustrating, other than the Chad Bianco element, right, is I'm looking at this governor's race going, okay, I'm not seeing anybody that could win. I'm just being straight with you. Like, I don't think like Chad Bianco with his sheriff's costume on is appealing to the Democrats. I think he's splitting the MAGA base, so I think he has zero chance, right? Then you have Steve Hilton, who's these are the two frontrunners, who's basically part of the Cameron administration, which is the root of why England is a mess today. So I don't know, unless he's had a complete 180 policy difference, like
that stuff up, and people don't even realize it. His main experience in government is working for Prime Minister David Cameron, who was a failed prime minister who oversaw the Brexit vote, didn't think it was going to get there, and then after the Brexit vote happened, he took his ball and he went home. He quit. And furthermore, I'm old enough to remember just a couple of years ago when Republicans did not like Fox News, didn't respect Fox News hosts, and then all of a sudden I go to all these Republican events and there are people lining up to take a picture with the British Fox News host who's getting ready to run for governor, and he just got here. My son, I have 5 kids. My son, the youngest son, turned 6 years old on Monday. He's been an American longer than Steve Hilton. He doesn't have any business, and the British accent isn't going to go well. He doesn't have the command presence that he needs to have as a governor. We need someone to come in and CEO this business. We need someone to come in and lead. And the biggest problem that I have with the way that some of these, and we could go on further with Steve Hilton, because he's talking about running with Gloria Romero, as his lieutenant governor. She was the head of the Democrats in the Senate for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. It's basically Hillary Clinton. And we're supposed to all of a sudden have her be the lead of the Republican Party. So his instincts are off. And the biggest issue that Sheriff Bianco has is he has a mentality of only the sheriff can save us. And he's got it all over the shirts. And my mentality about that is one man cannot save us.
I got to mention this because I just saw something today that, I mean, yes, there's an emotional element to me and Bianco. So I am biased to a certain level. But he releases this thing today going like, if I become governor, I'm going to address this election fraud issue. And the reason I have such an issue with that is we're at this conference right now where we have some of the best experts on election fraud. These individuals were actually introduced to Bianco at one point. I found that out today. That these individuals, by patriots, were brought into Bianco's world, sure, and Bianco chose not to have them do it. And they were the experts. And then he chose somebody that is one of those people that's going to, be part of the cover-up, right? And he's a sheriff right now. He has all the power in the world to do whatever he wants with election fraud. He doesn't need to be governor. So that, to me, it seems like, why aren't you doing it as sheriff? If you're so against election fraud, we know these machines have questions. You've had, 6 years you've been a sheriff?
There's a certain amount of, there's certain things that he can do, and I feel like he's done a lot of those things in Riverside County as far as, around elections go and whatnot, and I'm certainly not here to stump for him. I've got a lot of respect for Sheriff Bianco, and there are problems that I have. Now, the difficult thing is around election fraud is that's the Secretary of State's job. And so we need a solid Secretary of State. I think Chris Bish would be an amazing Secretary of State. We need a really great controller to go in and audit California, to Doge California. I think Jack Guerrero would be a great controller. And so you start looking at all of these jobs because, just like one man cannot save us all, one man did not destroy California. It wasn't just Governor Newsom. It was Governor Newsom and it was everyone around him. The reason why we have such terrible elections is because of Shirley Weber running the Secretary of State's office. As a veteran, I can't even identify as a veteran on the ballot. That's a problem. And so, do we need to go back to same-day voting, voter ID, only paper ballots? And people are talking about a lot of that. I'm like, we live in the most technologically advanced state in the world. We lead in technology. Why are we not moving back to smoke signals and carving our votes into rock? Because it's counterintuitive. We have something called a blockchain now. We could vote on a blockchain. And so I want to bring California's economy into the future, bring some of the elements of the past that have done right by California, agriculture, film and television, bringing manufacturing back to California, all these different things that California has historically, technology, you know what I mean? Artificial intelligence, AGI, machine learning, we could really lead the way. And not only that, we could test the dollar here. Because with the fourth largest economy in the world, if we were to launch our own coin in California, backed by the fourth largest economy in the world, we could test the dollar. And it's not even that I want to destroy the dollar, but I want our country to stop destabilizing the world and devaluing the dollar because it affects us. Inflation is a hidden tax on the lower and middle class. And so like during COVID, when we were losing $1 billion in wealth a day, a new billionaire was created every day. And so there are people who are looking at the Republican Party. They're legitimately frustrated. You've got one of the 3 richest people in America, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, own more wealth than the 157 million people in the lower half. And I look at Elon Musk being subsidized $8 million a day, $29 billion for his different programs. SpaceX being evaluated at $380 billion. 90% of their revenue comes from we the people, average people making $37,000 a year. And I think, is that the right guy to go in and audit government spending? I'm not necessarily sure that that's the case. And so I get why people are frustrated. I'm frustrated. I'm disappointed as a whole, not just in California. I'm disappointed in America. I'm disappointed in the Department of Defense. I'm disappointed in the Pentagon. And so we have to be more than anti-war, which I am. I'm a combat veteran. I'm a killer. I'm a machine gunner. It's not enough to be anti-war. We have to be pro something. We have to be pro the creation of our home. And I think that destructive people are often also very creative people. And if you don't give people an outlet to create something beautiful, like create California, they're going to be more concerned about destroying things. And we become a very destructive culture. And so even our politicians, when they get up and they talk in front of people, they're not talking about what they want to build. They're talking about all the problems. They say, oh, this is a problem, that's a problem. There's this going on in the schools, and we need to destroy this, and we need to take on that, and take down this agency. Okay, great. What are you going to build? You know what I mean? I mean, like, we have some of the most beautiful state parks in the world in California. Did you know we spend $1 billion on our state parks? But did you know that we get $7 billion on an ROI every year? Yeah, so there are things that government could spend money on where we would have a massive return on investment. Housing is something that we struggle with, right? And in California, we have the EPA, we have the CEQA, and we have the real estate Gestapo with all their bureaucratic red tape and legislation that makes it very difficult for developers to develop. So one of the things that we could do is get the federal government out of the way. I don't even know why we pay federal income tax, federal taxes at all. What are we getting from the federal government? Not a whole hell of a lot. And we send $324 billion a year out of the state of California to the federal government.
By the way, I want to go on this topic here. I was just talking to a gentleman about, like, he lives in California. His ex-wife decided to sexually transition the kid. He has no father's rights whatsoever. He can't see his kids till he's 18. So not only is he paying tax, he's paying for child for payments, alimony, whatever you call it. And he's getting nothing. All he's getting is tyranny in return. He can't even see his kids till 18. And this guy's not a violent guy. He's not a drug addict. It's because of the Me Too family courts, the woke family courts, and they're destroying families.
Yeah, well, there's a whole judicial system that has created an industrial complex around law. And so, you've got billions of dollars that get spent in the courts. Anyone who's ever hired a lawyer before can tell you that billing is jacked up. That there's no other business on planet Earth that works the way that these lawyers work or don't work. And they still, what other business out there can you not offer results continuously over and over and over again, but get paid for what you're not doing? So I've got a lot of problem with the justice system. I've got a lot of problem with the jails and the prisons. Why are our prisoners being separated by race and being allowed to carry on these race riots? And it's because we no longer focus on rehabilitation. We focus on incarceration. We no longer focus on education. And when you don't educate, you incarcerate. And so when people don't have opportunities, a lot of times they become thieves. They become bad people. You know what I mean? Because they don't see the hope within the system. And so if we revitalized education and brought certificate programs, licensing programs back into the schools, voucher programs back into the schools, give parents school choice. A Golden State school choice voucher system, a Golden State child care voucher. Because it's become so expensive to be a parent in California. We're pricing people out of having a family. That's devastating. And so there are things that we could do by investing in water and water infrastructure to go and make our agriculture boom, which brings down the cost of groceries. Stop shutting down oil refineries and start drilling for oil, because we have 600 active oil and gas permits on over 200,000 acres already. Why are we not drilling? Why are we not refining? And it's because we privatize everything. And what happens when you privatize something? Well, they want to capitalize on scarcity instead of banking on abundance. So you look at uranium. Everybody's so concerned, right? Oh, Iran's enriching uranium. You know who's not enriching uranium?
We're not.
America. Because in 1992, we privatized all the uranium in America. And a lot of the Blackstone, Vanguard, State Street own a majority of the uranium coming out of Wyoming, coming out of California. And so what happened was we heavily government subsidized these private corporations that were supposed to. And why would you want to privatize your nuclear energy program? Isn't there something that government should be responsible for? So we're giving them billions of dollars in subsidies, and they can't perform. So we shut down our last enrichment facility in America in 2014. So now where is our uranium getting enriched? Russia and China.
It's like a comedy, man. It's like a comedy. It's imbeciles running our government. Let's talk about, you've written 5 books.
Yeah, well, and it's not just imbeciles. They're doing this on purpose. Yeah, this is by design. This is not a mistake. And so when you look at what they're doing with uranium, you look at what they're doing with oil and gasoline, what they're doing with natural gas by outlawing your stove and everything. They want to create scarcity in education. They want to create scarcity in housing and in healthcare and in energy. And they do it deliberately. It's designed. And so I've written 5 books. The first book was The Machine Gunner's Guide to Real Estate, Accuracy by Volume. My second book was All the World's a Stage, Unmasking Asperger's Syndrome. My third book was Zen Business, An Eastern Approach to the Western Business Climate. And my fourth and fifth books are Common Sense for California, A Guide to the New Revolution.
Well, I mean, point being here is like you are highly qualified person. You've done a lot of research. You've been in the world. You've been in the military. And the thing that sucks about all this is the Debbie Downer part of the story, is that like it's as if a lot of the other candidates beyond the two Fox News endorsed ones are not getting much love. They're not getting much exposure. I mean, how is that for you? Are you frustrated by it? Did you see that changing? What does the road ahead look like?
So there's an incredible amount of corruption that takes place both at the state level in the Republican Party and in your local Central Committee. For those of you that don't know what a Central Committee is, that's your local Republican Party in your county. And so the Riverside County Republican Party is trying to rig a governor's debate, a week from now, and with a top 8, and they're not inviting me. And I Daniel Mercury told me about this coming. He said, hey, they already picked the winners. And he was calling the other candidates and saying, this is a rigged system. You got a call from people within the Central Committee saying they're planning on trying to embarrass the candidates so that they can promote endorse Sheriff Bianco. And so I'm not surprised. The Riverside County Republican Party is a weak organization. They're broke. They're unorganized. And there's about 3 or 4 people in that entire building that are worth their salt. And so I'm no longer going to ask permission from the participation trophy party, the party of losers, the party of principled losers who just want to lose by a little bit less than the last guy. I'm not going to ask them permission because not only do they not help, they stand in the way. And then if you still pick up momentum amongst the grassroots, they rug pull you by introducing another candidate, which is what they did to Rachel Hamm when she ran for Secretary of State. It's what they did to Eric Early when he ran for for Senate. They introduced Steve Garvey at the 11th hour, and was he 82, 83, 84 years old? Yeah. He had no business. And if we had a debate between Eric Early and Porter and Schiff and Lee, it would have been a different story than the sacrificial lamb that got put out into the debate field with Porter and Lee and Schiff and lost.
I mean, okay. I heard in Sacramento when you and I met that the vote was rigged over there. That's what I heard. Tell me a little bit.
So I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. I believe that Corinne won, and I believe that she was justified in her win. I feel like she was the most qualified person to win. Now, listen, I didn't vote for all of the CAGOP candidates, and I didn't vote for all the CRA candidates, because there's 2 different entities that were really at work in the CAGOP. There's the California Republican Party, and there's the California Republican Assembly. And the Republican Assembly had launched these 4 candidates that they wanted to win, and the CAGOP kind of had the 4 candidates that they wanted to win. Now, I like Corinne. A lot of people do not like Corinne. Corinne showed up for me in my primary. It was the last time that I ran. I reached out to Senator Morell. I read his book, Restoring Freedom or Restoring Faith. And I asked him to come out and endorse me. He didn't endorse me. I was the only Republican on the ballot. He didn't endorse me. I asked him to come out and speak at my great big Republican rally because I had 25 candidates out speaking, and he didn't show up. But you know who did show up? Corinne showed up. She flew all the way down here from Northern California. And then finally, when my local Republican Party did not endorse me, even though, again, I was the only Republican on the ballot, and they said they would help me, even though I ran in a district that wasn't my own, a D+27 district, instead of running against the incumbent, Ken Calvert, who'd been in for 32 years in my own district where I wanted to run, they said, if you run in this district, we'll help you. Not only did they not help me, they worked against me, and they wouldn't endorse me. Then when I won the Republican nomination, they didn't have a say anymore, so they tried to move to unendorse me. Corinne is the one that stepped up and said, no, David it's in the bylaws. He won the Republican nomination. If you move to unendorse, it's going to be a problem because you'll have to officially endorse Takano. And then finally, David's been a Republican because they were claiming that I wasn't a Republican for at least a year. She said, here's the date that David registered to vote Republican. And so, she backed me up. And so I like Corinne, and I'm also, if you're going to gamble on horses, you don't bet on the horse, you bet on the rider. I don't think that Mike had it in his ability to carry the Republican Party where he needed to. I do believe that Corinne did. That being said, I also voted for Jack Guerrero. There's no bones about it. I'm a big Jack Guerrero fan. I want him to run for state controller. And when he went up there, he was holding a sign that said Doge California. Like, yes, audit California. I don't want you to audit the Republican Party, which is a failed organization anyway, audit all of the PPP loans, the lottery money, which was supposed to save our schools, the teachers union, audit the bridge to nowhere. There's so much waste, fraud, and abuse in the state of California that I would love to expose, and I'd love to market, and I'd love to advertise and show people exactly where their money's being spent. And we could do that with, a great Secretary of State, running point by pulling public records and looking for waste, fraud, and abuse, which is what Chris Fish is already doing. There's a reason why Letitia James is in trouble. There's a reason why Adam Schiff is in trouble, and it's because of the paperwork that Chris Fish has been doing. And so, that's what I've been doing, brother. I've been talking to attorney generals and people, attorneys, asking them to run for attorney general. But it's hard to get an attorney to run for attorney general when they're making $1.5 million, $2 million a year, and you're saying, hey, will you give all that up and make $160,000 a year? And will you, in addition to that, fight with CEQA and the EPA so we can develop? Will you fight on behalf of California so that we can bring back institutions and make our streets safe again? Because that's compassion. It's not compassion to have people sleeping under bridges. Will you fight because there's three big, will you fight with the teachers union so we could bring school choice to our parents so that they could decide to send their kids to any school of their choice, whether it's a private school, a public school, a charter school, or homeschool? It's your money. Why are you not able to spend it the way that you want to spend it? And monopolies do not create innovation. We don't get the best that we could possibly get out of a monopoly. So through a little bit of healthy competition, I believe that our schools will be better than they've ever been.
You're talking about the corruption of the Riverside GOP. My impression from meeting you, hanging out with you in Sacramento, and then doing a deep dive in what's happening in California is that, frankly, my opinion of the California GOP is that it is just the whole thing's corrupt. What do you say about that?
No, I agree with you. Yeah, so our last person that ran the Riverside County Republican Party was a political consultant. And the newest person that's running the Riverside County Republican Party is a political consultant. And she sat down with me during my last race, and she said, I'd like to run your campaign. And if I run your campaign, you're going to pay me $75,000 whether you win or lose. And if you don't win, if you lose and you don't pay me, I will sue you and I will win. And I'm like, wow. This is wild. And so there's this sort of, and Daniel Mercury talks about it a lot too. There's all these gatekeepers that are involved in the Republican Party, in the media, and within the Republican establishment. Carl DeMaio is a perfect example. We look at him and, reform California. Well, before you were reforming California, Carl, Assemblyman DeMaio, you were reforming San Diego, which went from having 5 Republicans on their city council to 0. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for leading us right off a cliff. And then, Assemblyman Carl DeMaio, he's a dork. I love nerds. I love nerds like, Chris Fish is a nerd. I love big-brained people. But he's a gatekeeper. He doesn't have any command presence. He's not a boss. He's not trying to surround himself with people that are better than him in the ways in which he lacks. He goes and he tries to find the weakest candidates possible so that he could have a bunch of yes men surrounding him. And everybody donates money to him, and they think that they're donating to Reform California, but they're not donating to Reform California. They're donating to Carl DeMaio for Assembly. And so Carl DeMaio wanted Steve Hilton, his boy, to run for governor, right? And then he knew that I filed for lieutenant governor. And I talked to, because I was watching his show. As difficult as his voice is to listen to, as frustrating of a person as he is to follow, like I was watching. But after a while, I started to see the strings. And I would have people come up to me and say, hey, I want to run for Senate, or I want to run for Congress. But I went up to Carl DeMaio and he said, oh, we've got someone for that seat. We're already running somebody. Instead of saying, well, have you thought about Assembly? Or have you thought about City Council? Or have you thought about school board? And so I said to Carl DeMaio, I said, hey, I'm running for lieutenant governor. And I know that he knows this because I was watching his show. My name was behind him on the screen that he was reading. And he goes, we still don't have anyone on the Republican side to run for lieutenant governor. And I'm like, okay, yes, you do. It's okay if you don't like me, right? And I'm abrasive and I'm very autistic. So I'm going to tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. I'm going to tell you what I perceive to be the truth. And what I perceive to be the truth is Carl DeMaio is gatekeeping. He decided that he wanted to have Gloria Romero run for lieutenant governor. Are you kidding me? This is the best that we have to offer in the state of California for the Republican Party?
It almost feels like the whole thing needs a takeover. It feels like all you 8 8, 10 guys that have been like pushed to the sidelines by Fox News needs to team up and be like, we're taking this over now. It's ours. Not permission, just like you said. We don't ask permission. It's ours now.
Brother, you're 100% right. There's a movement that we're working on right now called the New Founders Movement. And the New Founders Movement is going to bring about a red wedding. Not just into the Republican Party, into the Democratic Party too. Because the system, the way that it is rigged, there are two things that you have to overcome. Heavily gerrymandered districts in the jungle primary, right? So what do you do in a D plus 27 district? Well, a Republican's not going to win. So we need a solid Democrat that's going to go and fight against the person in that district, just like we need a solid Republican to primary the Republicans. The biggest thing that the establishment is afraid of is that we are going to flood the primary. And so what I want to do is through this organization that we're creating, where we put people over parties, is this New Founders Movement. And I've been reaching out to the other gubernatorial candidates, and I've been talking to them about this, because since January, I've been reaching out to people and asking them to run for office. And here we are, what is it, June? Yeah. 6 months into this, driving all over the state of California, calling people, talking to people, asking them to run for office. We need everybody. We need so much help right now. We can't continue to run the same people that have lost 3, 4, 5 times without any support, without any help, and expect that we're going to get the next generation out. And we also cannot expect that we're only going to be able to do it within the Republican Party. When our founders established America, there were no political parties. There wasn't the Republican and Democratic Party. It's e pluribus unum, from many one. And with the Republican Party, we fractured ourselves so much. We're the Hispanic Republicans. We're Republican women. We're Republican veterans. And then because we fracture ourselves so much, then it's like, okay, well, what's important to Republican veterans? Well, what's important to Republican Hispanics? Well, what do we want to stand for as Republican women? And it's like, if we got us all in there, competition creates innovation. And yet here we are, 348 days until the next election, and everyone's like, back up one candidate. And I'm like, that's what the Democratic Party does. Through the Republican Party, we like competition. We like innovation. We like people to spar it out and let the cream rise to the top. If we're not going to do that, what are we doing? And so I don't want the media to pick who we're going to pick, which is Steve Hilton. And I've talked to people. And
Chad Bianco, by the way. He both of them are getting pushed by Fox.
Correct. And, it's gotten to the point, there's 3 debates that are coming up. There's the debate by BBS, which is going to be a televised debate. There's a debate by the Speaker's Corner, and then there's Kim Yeater's Take Your Power Back debate. So there's 3 scheduled debates. I don't know whether or not Steve Hilton or Bianco are going to show up for either one of them. Now, if I were them, and I was looking at me, I wouldn't want to stand on stage with a 6'2", 250-pound killer.
By the way, I think that whole situation with Chad Bianco's team not embracing you and kind of like not returning phone calls and all that stuff, I actually have dude, I saw you guys standing together, bro. He's this little man compared to you. And I think it's literally the simplicity of aesthetics and optics, in my opinion, looking at it from the outside. I don't know the details, but I could see that kind of move.
Well, it's all an algorithm, right? And so, we know that people that are taller, you wear a blue suit, you're reasonably good looking because, politics is show business for ugly people, right? You kind of get away with some of it, right? But, yeah, I do. I compliment him a little bit. I also soften him up a little bit because he tends to get a little bit frustrated in some of these debates.
You're talking about Bianco?
I'm talking about Bianco. Tends to get a little bit frustrated, a little bit tense. He's not super personable. I'm a very personable person. I'm pretty calm. I'm pretty reasonable. I feel like I could bring some of the youth. I'm a bit younger than he is. You know what I mean? I've got 5 kids still in the house. You know what I mean? I'm a millennial. And so I feel like there's a lot that could have been accomplished together. And I don't even necessarily think it came from Sheriff Bianco. I think it was his team. I think it was his team that was like, hey, listen, Serpa's a grenade, or he's an IED. You don't want to step on him. Separate yourself from him. Because I think that probably what was happening was he was probably getting a lot of the same advice that I was getting from political consultants. Because I had a lot of political consultants calling me, asking, hey, are you going to run? We'd love for you to run. The political or the donor class is really excited about you. I don't know how much of that was true, right? But we could have done a lot together. And I think that he knew that. But he has people that are surrounding him that I think were trying to drive a wedge and telling him, hey, listen, you want to be the only electable Republican. Because that's what they were telling me. You want Californians who only vote for Democrats to vote for you. And I tell people, if you do that, you go about it the Schwarzenegger route, where we get a Republican governor and we still have a Democratic executive branch, a Democratic assembly, a Democratic Senate, and nothing's ever really going to get done. So we have to come in like it's a business. And if you're going to come into a business, a lot of times, like they're doing with Doge, you got to fire everybody. And so I want to get rid of everybody in the Senate. I want to get rid of everybody in the Assembly. I want to get rid of everybody in the executive branch. I want to get rid of, all, if we can, a lot of these people in the Congress, because you cannot drain half of a swamp. You have to come for everybody. And we want to say, oh, well, Pelosi. Well, what about Mitch McConnell? What about Lindsey Graham? What about Ken Calvert? What about these people that have been in there for 20, 30, 35 years and they're not going anywhere? Are they or are they not also part of the problem?
You know, it's I don't know how you fix this situation, man, because this is you know, you have a party that's not necessarily even pushing good candidates anymore. They're not pushing pro-Constitution candidates. I know when we had that call or the spaces with you and Daniel Mercury talking, I mean, you guys were talking about the Constitution. You guys were talking about restoring rights that are embedded in our laws, but like none of these guys are talking about it. And when you talk about political consultants running the show, I can tell you from I'm a Nevada party member in the Republican Party. I'm part of the committee there. I was a caucus captain for the Trump 24 campaign. We delivered a lot of votes, and I saw essentially a lot of political campaigns, and I ran for office. When somebody tells me that they're listening to their political consultants, to me that's like literally the word. It's like suicide. It's suicide, because if you listen to political consultants in modern day and you make decisions like this that are not good for really the movement as a whole, really what you're doing is you're presenting something very inauthentic, and I think people read that nowadays. I think they'd rather see somebody with blemishes, but it's a real person, as opposed to somebody that is so, you know, we saw with the Al Gore election. That's another example where Al Gore lost that election because of his political consultants, because of the bad information. So my point of view is political consultants are the kiss of death. You got to go with your gut, but you tell me.
Because, you know, he has the personality of a cardboard box.
But, you know, listening to political consultants when he had talking points that would have resonated with the people more if he was his authentic self.
Yes. So I agree with you. And so I have a lot of political consultants, and they always tell you the same thing. They say, don't associate yourself with any other candidates, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to associate myself with all the candidates. E pluribus unum, from many one. You know, why would I be afraid of debate? I know where I stand, but also steel sharpens steel. So, you know, if I disagree with you, I almost want to listen to you more, because I'm going to hear your points. I'm going to hear where you're coming from. I might be wrong, but people are afraid to be wrong, right? It's a slight on their ego. And so if you haven't been humbled before, you will be humbled, right? And so I've been humbled. I know that I'm not the best person for every job. So I want to surround myself with people who are better than me in the ways in which I lack. The political consultants don't want you to do that. They want you to put yourself in an echo chamber, and they say pick 2 or 3 topics, hammer those home, never speak for longer than 5 minutes. Now, you've been in places where I've been speaking before. Whenever I get up, first off, I talk extraordinarily fast because I have a lot that I want to cover. But if I can, I'm going to talk for an hour, and it's going to be an education. I'm not going to talk about 2 or 3 things. I'm not a sniper. It's accuracy by volume. I'm a machine gunner. So I'm going to give you all the information. I'm going to tell you why I stand where I stand, how we got here, how we get out of here, what the problem is, because I believe that the people in front of me are not stupid. And that's what they want me to do. They want me to talk to people like they're stupid. And I'm not going to do it. I respect people too much. I believe that in the audience, we're sick of being talked to like we're stupid. We're sick of being fed culture war bull crap. You know, like nobody wins the culture war. We all lose. Instead of culture war where we're, you know, oh, trans people this and gay people that and, you know, atheists this and yada, yada. Shut up. Focus on good governance. If you focus on good governance, everybody wins.
Yeah. It's almost like, frankly, I think our country's so spoiled because we haven't seen truly dark things, and even when it comes to the news, and they sanitize it, they don't show you the true horrors. And I think that's part of the issue. You go to Mexico, and let's say there's like some kind of shooting or some kind of mob thing. Like, they'll actually, on the front page, you'll see the horrors of what was done, and people their eyes are more open to the evil in this world. But for such a long time, we've been censored from seeing that information. I think that's part of the problem. It's made us really soft as people.
It's very comfortable, and when you're comfortable, you become complacent. And so the thing is, we've all got Netflix, and we've all got our phone that we can scroll, and we've got fast food and whatnot. But the thing is, it's like boiling a frog alive. Is it a frog that gets boiled?
It's funny. Somebody else said that that when I hear like, oh, Chad Bianco or Steve Hilton's like, oh, I'm going to get you CCW permits or whatever, concealed carry. I'm like, that's boiling a frog, basically, because you're basically taking my constitutional rights away, but telling me, like, it's like pissing on my face and telling it's raining, basically.
Not my sister, my wife tried to get a CCW permit, and it was a big hassle. It was a big to-do. She ended up getting denied because they want to know, oh, well, you're handling money. It's like, she's a real estate agent. She's 5'0". She's a tiny person. If she wants to carry around a gun, you shouldn't have to apply for a permit to carry a firearm. And so we've lost our way so deeply that the Republican Party doesn't stand for anything anymore. And the political compass is so broken because everything's been flipped upside down that, oh, I'm right wing, I'm left wing. It doesn't even matter anymore. Who are you as a person? Because I feel like as we shift politically left and right, we shift, Occupy Wall Street. And everybody on the right says, get a bath, you dirty hippie, get a job. But what were they complaining about? Consolidation of wealth within the 1%, the cost of college and tuition, or the cost of housing. Has that gotten worse? Yes, it has. The Tea Party patriots. Hey, we need to get out of everyone's business. We need to focus on our constitutional rights, respect the Fourth Amendment, all these different things. Have those problems gotten better or worse? They've gotten worse. And so I don't care if you're a Bernie bro or you're a MAGA person, the shift left and the shift right, populism has stayed in the middle. There's about 80% of people who never shifted left or right.
80%, dude. This is as you're talking, I'm like, what you're really talking about, you're talking about the 80% part. You're talking about getting rid of that gang warfare where they're constantly keeping us like red versus blue. It's like Crips versus Bloods, as opposed to really 80% of us agree on the same stuff.
Elon Musk said something about this, when him and Trump were having a little bit of a falling out. It's the right idea. 80% of us agree 90% of the time. It's not even 80%, it's 90% of the time. And yet all of the things that are so important that have bipartisan approval never get done. Because all they got to do is do something stupid on the left or the right to piss off the people on the other side or piss off their own base. And then everybody's like, oh, well, I'm not showing up to vote next time. It shifts left, it shifts right. Because like President Trump, I want to stomp for Trump. I want to do it, right? I did in the last election cycle. I will as much as we are aligned on a policy level. But my God, I want to see the Department of Defense and the Pentagon get treated by DOGE the same way that Medicare and cancer research got treated. So, look at the Department.
And you're military. You're military. That's the thing. You've been through it. It's not like you're talking like a peacenik, and you're talking about peace. You're talking about stopping these perpetual wars.
I'm a violent dude. And I believe that wars should be fought quickly and violently, right? And so at the end of the day, I look at, the Department of Defense has failed 7 consecutive audits, unable to account for 61% of $3.5 trillion. An audit, obviously those results should have been referred to the Attorney General so that we could prosecute, right? And so we fund 73% of the world's authoritarian dictatorships. We have over 800 foreign military bases. What happened to America?
And there's potholes, and it's like the country is messed up. You have homelessness, and we're what? Like, we're worried about, like, what are we worried about? What about that $90 billion worth of equipment? If we had actually sold that secondhand and gotten $30 billion for it, and then given that $30 billion to California so they could clean up the mess over here.
Bring it home or blow it up. Bring it home or blow it up, but leaving it there in working, capacity so that they were able to have their own military parade, that's wild. That's crazy.
That is like the most bizarre. That if that's not treason, how could that happen, dude? $90 billion worth of stuff.
Well, and so the auditor in the state of California, their name is the controller. And so you need to have an attorney general that can prosecute the findings, right? And I'm not one of those people, lock everybody up, throw Newsom in jail. It's like, for what? For what? Why? What?
Could I tell you what? Could I tell you what I? Okay, the whole COVID thing was a scam. That whole COVID thing, man. You going and hanging out at restaurants while you're not getting the jab. You're telling everybody to get the jab, and then people start dropping like flies who got the jab. To me, that's a crime against humanity. So I think if we actually had a judicial legal system that functioned on a constitutional basis, we wouldn't be in this mess, I think. But I think there's been so much statutory laws that have peeled away at the inherent rights underneath the Constitution that then these criminals get away with things like treason and stuff. But 100%, I think there's enough right now to prosecute Newsom, in my opinion.
I look at Newsom just the same way that I look at Trump. Trump wants people to be, everybody looks at Trump and they're like, he's everything wrong with America. And everybody looks at Newsom and they say, he's everything wrong with California. It's like, no. Should Trump have had 34 felonies that he's going to get locked up for? No. Should Newsom get locked up for his management of COVID? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Was he negligent? Yes. Did he allow his kids to go to school when our kids were still not in school? They were at home. Was he going to restaurants when he was telling us all to social distance? Yes, all those things. Are those jailable offenses? I don't think so. And so I'm not about just locking up political opponents. I want to audit the PPP loans. I want to audit the bridge to nowhere. I want to audit Caltrans. I want to audit all of this. And when we find that billions of dollars, like $24 billion missing from that was supposed to help homelessness, who's going to jail? Because if we don't lock up the people,
So who's in charge of that 24 billion?
that's what I'm talking about. So Bill Asaley was just named to the Attorney General's office, and he's going to start looking into things like that. Who's responsible for it? I don't know exactly. You've got somebody in appropriations that's deciding who the checks go to and how much they're written for, which is the same way our federal government works. But the treasurer is the Bank of California. They decide where the money's going and how much of it's going there. The controller goes through and they audit and make sure that that money's being spent appropriately. So what you need is a treasurer, the bank, to act like the bank. You need a controller to audit the way that they need to audit, and you need a Secretary of State to go through public records and make sure that there is no waste, fraud, and abuse.
This is amazing, David. I really hope you could break through the censorship. This whole thing where you're telling me where they're trying to set you guys up to embarrass you. So one candidate could. It's just so ugly, dude. I really hope you find a path through. I'm going to give you the mic, and I want you to give a closing message to our audience.
Sure. So first off, everybody, I appreciate you watching for the 48 minutes that we got started here. We cannot fix the problem at the same level of thinking that created the problem. So somebody asked me the other day when I was out speaking at the Ventura County Republican Party how I plan to work with the libtards. And I said, well, first off, we're going to stop calling them libtards because that's not going to do it, right? The Democrats have been abandoned by their party in the same way that the Republicans have been abandoned by their party. And so I have compassion and sympathy for these people, but they're human beings. And we are outnumbered. There are 48% registered Democrats in the state of California, 24% registered Republicans. And so we do not win without winning over Democrats. Period. Full stop. End of sentence. And so what I want to do is I want to create this organization with these people that I'm working with currently called the New Founders Movement. And the New Founders are going to be concentrating in making sure that every single congressman, senator, assemblyman, and every member in the executive branch faces a primary. Because currently they try to rig the primaries to make sure that there's not another Republican challenging a Republican in a Republican district. There's not a Democrat challenging a Democrat in a heavily Democratic district. But what we can do is we can make sure that we have somebody challenging every single person so that we turn it over, get fresh blood in there, because we have to understand it's not one person that's going to save us. We're all going to need to do it. And if you finish this podcast and you move on with your life, we lose. We've all got to get involved. And this is why I feel like California is the right place for this New Founders Movement, where we place people over party and we focus on three things. These three things and these three things only will open up the door to you into the New Founders Movement, which we'll be launching here soon. One is liberty, libertas. 2, disputatio, which is dispute, debate, right? And the third one is e pluribus unum, from many one. Wherever you come from, we're glad that you're here. Let's start fixing California together. Let's get in the trenches together. Let's activate the grassroots together. But let's also think about the kingmakers, right? So everybody, my name's David Serpa. Feel free to follow me. I'm everywhere on social media. I got a bunch of content that's going to be releasing very soon. I haven't been posting a lot on social media because I'm not addicted to the sound of the applause. I've been doing a lot of work throughout the state of California for the last 6 months, trying to find people to run for office. If you're interested in running for office and you have been gate kept out of the system, reach out to me directly. Can I put my phone number out there, or will it block? Sometimes you put your phone number on these things and the algorithm blocks it. Feel free to give me a call directly at 951-691-7798. I do pick up my phone as often as I can, but if I don't pick up, please leave me a call or a voicemail or a text message, and let's save California together. Let's not just save California together. Let's make it better than ever. Let's bring about the economy of the future. Let's head into this fourth industrial revolution with strength, with power. Let's lead the rest of the country, and let's lead the rest of the world right here where we are very used to doing that, which is in California. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks a lot,
Appreciate
brother.
you.
Thank you. For the viewers, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Make sure you check out AmericaHappens.com, and I will see you all on the next episode. Thank you.